So once you have covered your little shape with the brown, it should look something like this. So half brown and the underside white, going all the way around, like that. Now we're going to add the nose right on the top. A light brown would do. I've got a little bit of pink left over from the Christmas mouse, so I'm going to use a little bit of pink. I'm going to start with a small amount, tear it off, and then I'm going to roll this between my fingers to get it into a ball. This just helps me with my shape before I apply it. And I'm going to put it right on the end. If you're finding it isn't connecting very well, or it's distorting, it may be that you're using a needle that's just a little bit too fat for this task. So if you have one, go to a slightly narrower gauge needle. And I'm going to tap it all the way around, not so much from the top and squashing the nose, but more going round the nose and fitting it in. And I have some bits of white that are showing, which I'm not going to worry about too much, because actually mice do have a little bit of whiteness around their noses. I can say I intended that all along. So there we go. Until that's nicely and firmly on there by just tapping on the underneath. Now we're going to choose where to put the eyes. Now this is quite important, this bit. It's very easy to set them far back. If you set them far back, say there, then it looks as though this whole piece of shape is going to be the head of a mouse, and you'd need two really big ears and then a big body. But that's not what this project's all about. This project is a dinky little mouse, so the eyes need to come really far forward. I'll show you on this model here how far forward they are. So try and remember that this is just the whole body. This is not just the head. So we're going to put those eyes really far forward. And first we're going to mark them with a little bit of white. An off-white if you have it. So a little bit of off-white. Tear some off. And very gently just shape it so it's not a long line anymore, a long strand. You don't want it hard like a pea, because you want it quite loose. And you're going to experiment as to where you want your eye. So I'm going to think about there. I hope I've put that far forward enough, having just told you that it's got to be far forward. It must be far forward. So I think that's okay. Let's have a little check from the front. Yes, that looks okay. Now we're going to put on the second eye. We have to be slightly more careful with the second eye because it's got to match the first eye. Not only in size, so again I'm going to roll it just very carefully, very loosely, just very loosely, a loose little cloud like that. So this time the eye has not only got to be the same level facing forward, also from above it's got to be the same distance. So I'm going to prod it in just a little bit and then check it on all sides and make sure it's all right. Yep, I'm happy with that. I shall now go for it and pop it in there. Now to complete our eyes, there are various options depending what you have to hand. If you have some black felt, that's fantastic, because we are going to put a little bit of dark felt to shape our eye. And if you like, that can be your total eye. Just a little bit of black wool in the middle would be perfect. So something like that. If you've got a very dark brown, that will also work. So I'm going to take a small amount of black. If you can see that, it's a very small amount. Now this one I'm going to roll up slightly tighter. Check my eyes again quickly. Make sure, double check my eyes. Yes, they're okay. So I'm going to put that little dot inside. Because I didn't over roll the black, it means that I can still pull it out quite nicely, so the white line around it stays thin. If I'd really rolled it into a very, very tight little black pea, really, really tight, what it would stand very proud of the wool, and I'd have to stab and stab and stab until it got attached, by which time it would probably be shrunk and shrunk and shrunk, and you end up with almost like a pinprick of an eye. So keep that black slightly loose when you're putting it on, and it just gives you that little bit of leeway to be able to stretch it out. As you can see with my needle, I'm just very delicately pulling it out to make the shape that I want. So that as an eye works very nicely. It's absolutely fine like that. And if you want to leave it like that, that's fine. However, if you do happen to have in your craft stash, and I know we all have a you never have a craft drawer, you have a craft stash, because it accumulates. There's so many things you find and you think, oh, that would come in handy, and it grows and grows and grows. Anyway, so if you have a craft stash and you so happen to have some beads in there, and if they are dark brown or black beads, we can use them for this next little stage. So there I have two little eyes peeking at me, which are absolutely fine, and they're saying hello already. However, to do this little bit extra, you'll need some black thread and a needle and two very small little black bead eyes. So I have my black thread there. I'm going to pop it in your mouth so I don't lose you. And as you can see, they're very small, these little black beads, like that. And what I'm going to do, I'm not going to come up through the white because that's going to be harder to show since I've got black thread. I'm going to put it in roughly where the ears are going to be. I'm going to come in from behind the eye, pop out in the middle of one eye, leave some loose thread there, pop one bead on, go in through that same eye and come out in the other one. So I'm going straight through from one side to the other. In fact, what I'm going to do now to help it show up more, I'm going to go over to my different backing colour. So hopefully you can see that better. That's a bit clearer, isn't it? So I'm going through from that side, the right, through to the left. Pull it through. Going to thread my other bead. On it goes. And this time I'm going to come back through and try and come out where I first went in, as close to it as I possibly can. Give it a good old tug without breaking your thread, so the eyes go into the head a little bit. And tie it off. I'm going to do a double just to be on the safe side and snip it off. I'm then going to disguise where the thread is with a little bit of the browns that I was using earlier. So just a few little taps in there will help disguise where the thread is. Perfect. So that's our eyes now in place. You might need to rearrange your beads a little bit just so that they're pointing the right way, so the holes aren't too obvious, that sort of thing. So now I have my two little beads and my eyes poking up at me, and it's just giving me that little glint so that when the light catches it, there's just a little shimmer. However, it's in the middle of the black, so it's actually giving my mouth a little bit of expression as well. So now I'm going to add my little mouth. For my mouth, I'm going to use a little bit of dark brown. You can use black as well. And my little mouse is going to be slightly surprised. It's like, oh, doing that little oh action. So his mouth is going to go underneath, and it's just a little circle of the brown. Oh, there he is. Super. We need ears. If you have any craft felt to hand, then you can use that, and it's quick and it's easy. And what you need to do is just think of your finger and go round and make like the end of your finger shape. So up and round. And then cut it off so it's got a square bottom. So like that. So you've sort of like gone round your finger and given it a square bottom like that. And you need 2 of those exactly the same size. I will also show you, if you don't have any craft felt, that you can do it with the wool itself. So those are not quite the same size. I'm going to shrink that one down a little bit. In order to fix them, you're going to need a little bit of your brown wool again, whichever you used for your mouse. And the idea is to fold them as you put them on. So you give them a fold at the base, put it just above the eye, and tap it in with a bit of the brown wool. So that is going to act as your binder. No glue required. Isn't felting wonderful? I do love it so. It does everything. It does everything. So I'm going to do that the other side. So fold it again. Make sure I fold my ear. Put it just behind my eye and tap it in with a bit of the brown felt. Make sure they're going to stick up nicely. And so now the mouse is coming, and he's really looking much more like a little mouse should. So I'm just going to go over quickly, if you don't have those felt pieces, of how you can do some ears as well. Ideally, if you've got a little bit of pink felt, that would work. If you've got some light brown felt, that also will look good, or even a grey. Mice quite often have those really soft sort of grey ears. So what you need to do is blend a few colours. If it's going to be pink, ideally you don't want it really bright pink. If you're going for a natural toned mouse, then again, if you've got a bright pink mouse, you might have bright pink ears as well, just for fun. So I'm just blending those just a little bit, and I'm folding it over to give it some thickness already, and I'm going to put that straight into the mat like that, and I'm going to prod round onto the mat, straight on my wool. And I'm still trying to create that same shape as before, which was like the top of my finger. I'm going to go round. I'm leaving this bit loose. I'm not worrying about that bit. I'm going to go round and round and round. I'm going to peel it off before it gets too fixed to the mat, which it tends to do. And I'm going to go over on the other side. So this time I'm going on the other side, round and round and round I go. And you'll find it's slightly, gradually shrinking as you go round it, gradually shrinking. Round it goes. And then you'll feel it's becoming quite firm, but it's a bit too fluffy. So you can trim off the fluffy pieces on either side. And if you find it's not quite the right shape, really carefully now, hold it between your thumb and your index finger and just prod like that on the edge. Now, if you are going to do this, what I'd recommend is just such little prods, just such a little action. If you come out like that, you're at risk of hitting your finger every time you go back in. If you're hardly pulling it out of the wool, then you're not at that same risk because you're not going anywhere near your fingers. I'm hoping that makes sense. It's just such a small action that the needle's never actually coming out of the wool, very rarely, just if I'm moving it around a little bit. Anyway, that can take a little bit of practice, but it is very effective and you can use it for all sorts of things when you're just trying to toughen up an edge. It's really handy. So then when you've got your ear pretty much as you want it, you do the same thing. You fold it over to get that fold. You can tap it in place just to help you. Trim the bits off that you don't want. And in the same way, you would fix it in place to your mouse like that. So that's how you make one if you don't have a piece of craft felt in the colour that you want to use. So now we are with our little mice here. I'm going to add little arms next. So little arms, we're going to go back to the browns of our body that we used. So a nice little blend of those browns. And make enough to make 2 arms and 2 feet. Ideally, if you can do that all in one go, that would be brilliant. So I'm trying to remember now what I used. I used some of this and some of that. And I used a bit of that gingery one. That's the one I like to use. There we are. So I probably haven't mixed enough for everything. Hey ho. So blend, 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 mix, mix, mix. And I'm going to take a little piece off. Now the arms are just really dinky little arms, really small. So I've taken off a piece like that. I'm going to give it a little twist. Fold it over at the end so I don't have loose fronds sticking out all over the place. Put it onto my mat and tap up and down it like that. Move you out the way for a minute, you're going to topple. So up and down, and when it's reasonably firm, pick it up and do the other side. Similar really to how we were doing the ear. We're just going to be making an independent piece of felt here, felted wool. So up and down and up and down. And again, just taking in some of those loose edges. If you prefer just to trim off the loose fronds, that works really well as well. That's fine. So we want 2 little arms, just like that. So what I've done, as I pause the video for a second, because I was just prodding the same shapes, you want 2 little arms and 2 little feet, using the same method and the same wool colours. So the little arms we're going to put in halfway up. And I'm going to have them so they're angled slightly upwards, so they're not coming out straight, they're going to be angled slightly up like that. Move his feet out the way and do the same on the other side. Now before we add the feet, we have got to slightly change the shape that we originally made. At the moment, if he wants to sit up, his base is on the bottom and he looks a little bit like a rocket. We go back to the original one here. He's on his side. So we made the original shape like that, but what we need to do is almost cut off an edge to it. So give him a flat bottom at an angle like that coming across. So going back to this one, this is my mouse. So this angle here, I'm going to almost have to cut off. If you've been really diligent and have felted really, really hard, you may want to take some scissors and just snip a little bit. However, otherwise, just go for a stronger needle, a nice bold needle, and start prodding inwards from underneath along that line. So that's basically just at the bottom where the white meets the brown, going slightly up the tummy until you're going to give him a flat bottom at an angle. So now his flat bottom is there as opposed to being there. So his flat bottom is there. Just test him to see if he's going to sit up. He's going to sit up, yay! Doesn't always happen first time. It's happened, super. So now I can add his little feet. His feet are going to go right underneath, just over the bit of white there. So they will just literally poke out a little bit. And the other one in there. And we are really close now to having a super little mouse. So there he is. His little feet, fold them down a bit. So there we go. He's still standing up, even better. So he just needs a little tail. And then we can accessorize our little mouse. So for the tail, light brown, grey, pink, all sorts of colours do work really well. Quite often mice tails are actually more grey than pink, although I tend to always think of them as being pink. So a mix is good. I'm going to make mine like this. So I'm going to just blend a few colours as we've been doing. I don't want a really meaty tail, I just want a little hint of a tail really. So I'm going to twist it to give it a bit of memory. I'm going to start prodding up and down and twisting at the same time. Twisting round and round at the same time. If you wanted to, you could put it over a piece of wire, but for this mouse being so small, it's almost not really needed. And also because of the shape he is, he sits up. Sometimes if you've got a standing up mouse, it's really handy to have a nice wire tail because it then acts as a tripod and helps him stand up. But for this little mouse, he's going to be fine just with a little tail like this. And you'll find it will go fluffy. Just keep going over it with your needle. Trim it down. There are various different things you can use to make it less fluffy afterwards if you want to get a smoother effect. A little bit of light glue, a little bit of starch, hair gel, things like that, which are sort of liquidy but dry harder. So I'm just going to trim off the really fluffy bits of my tail there. That's all I'm going to want to do for this little one, I think. I might smooth him down with a little bit of gel afterwards if I want to, but he's just going to have a little tail. Cut that off because I don't want it to be that long. Pop it underneath there with some prods. Fix it nicely in place. And there he has his little tail. So now he's looking really quite sweet. And your ears moved. So as ever, we'll end up tweaking, won't we? After we've finished our little items, we always end up tweaking. So I'm going to give him, for this little mouse, he's for Valentine's Day. So for Valentine's Day, he's going to need a heart. So I'm going to cut out a heart out of a nice piece of thick craft felt that I've got here today. few little other ideas are popping up for how you could make these mice and use them for different festivals. They would even make lovely little place markings. You know, when you have a few people over to supper and you want to mark them, you could make little hearts like this, or even little plates shapes, and put their initial on it, which would look really rather sweet. But I've got I've got an Irish friend, and I think I'm going to make them one with a little shamrock for St. Patrick's Day. I might post some pictures of that once I've done it. So just in his little armies here, I'm going to tap the heart so it's in place like that. So it's just nicely tucked in place, and he's holding his little heart, can you see? And he's sort of saying, oh, I love you, little mouse. So I've now got my mice. Here he is. He'd rolled away. So here we are, 2 little mice, all ready for Valentine's Day. So as you can see, I used a slightly different ear colour for this one, but I hope you enjoy making your little mice. Do send me pictures, or post them up. I would love to hear how you get on, and also maybe how you accessorise your little mouse too. Let me know. It would be such fun to hear how all your ideas and creativity. It's the really fun thing about felting, that we can really expand our ideas and experiment with colours and so many different things and different ways of achieving similar results. So get going, get your needles out and have lots of fun. If you want to know more about Liberty's Feltery, just go to libertiesfeltery.com. Thank you. Bye for now.